don't look like I'm in the same heaven that you are.
Hello, guys. Welcome to our first official episode of Products of Divorce. Was that good?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So today we're going to be talking about the elephant in the room, which is the fact that our parents are no longer together. And by no longer, it's been almost 10 years since they've been together. But before we get into all that, how are you doing, Bella? How are you?
I'm doing well. Hot girl summer is working girl summer. All I do is work,
Felt that.
sleep, and read. My only social interaction is work. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
20 years old.
I'm in a very similar boat. I work 2 jobs literally every single day of my life. Today is my only day off.
Can't relate.
Yeah, well, Mama's got a lot of bills she's got to pay, but
can't relate.
So let's just get right into.
Wait, you can't hear me swallowing, can you? Can you hear that?
You could.
Should I not?
You could hear the little at the end, and that's all I got.
Okay, I won't do it anymore.
I apologize if my voice sounds terrible. I'll just keep drinking coffee to try and make it better. Anyways, so to get right into it, so our parents split in, what did we say, 2013, 2014?
They split in 2013, were officially divorced in 2014.
Okay, yeah. So literally about 10 years ago, we found out they were splitting. And the way that every divorced kid knows about the talk, and it's not like the fun talk you have with your parents. What
do you mean? I thought it was so fun.
I was trying to make a joke about the birds and the bees talk, but that talk isn't fun with your parents either. Fun. And we never had that talk. We never had that talk. We learned in the 5th grade through a family life class, but every divorce.
I missed that class too.
Every divorced kid knows Bella. Every divorced kid knows about the not fun talk with your parents when they sit you down and they're like, hey, mommy and daddy don't love each other anymore. And
that's not exactly how it went.
That's not, but for a lot of kids, that is.
Most of the time, it's mommy and daddy. Mommy and daddy still love each other. We're just having some problems, and we love you guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. But so let's just go right into it. Bella, did you have any idea that it was gonna happen? Because I sure as fuck didn't. I had no clue.
Yeah, I knew. I kind of knew it was coming. I am a little nosy person, and I love to know what's going on around me at all times. I just need to know. So there were these weird things that were happening that were out of the normal, and I didn't like that. Okay, let me start again.
Somebody followed us on Instagram.
Okay. Yes, I knew that it was coming to an extent. My parents were having conversations in the garage, which was weird because who does that? And one of my parents was falling asleep on the couch every night by accident. And we had watched a family friend go through a really messy divorce, and that scared the living crap out of me. So I was scared of divorce, so all of these weird things that were happening had me super on edge at 9 years old. And I went and spoke to my grandma, and she was like, well, how would you feel? And how would you blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why are you asking me these questions? Please stop asking me these questions. They're not getting divorced, right? But they were.
Ah, alas. Yeah, I had no clue. I really was none the wiser because I mean everybody, like all of my friends, like also had parents that had issues, and I do have a lot of friends that have always said to me like, I wish my parents had gotten divorced. Like they're still married, but they should have gotten a divorce. And I mean, I remember a lot of people put our parents' relationship like on a pedestal. So I was just like, hell yeah, heck yeah, we're in a nuclear family and we're rocking out. Like dad's working, mom's at home, and we all love each other. And that just like was very much not the case because I remember when they sat us down and they told us, I like blacked out. I really like had like could not process that it was happening because for me it came out of nowhere. And I remember when we first talked
That,
about this episode, you were kind of like talking about how you were waiting for us to find out. And
yeah.
like,
I got the talk twice. Lucky me.
I
One for each
know.
parent, I guess.
Bella always rode the
Um,
high of knowing things before anyone else.
it was never a high because I know all the bad stuff before everybody knows the bad stuff. Like when our grandpa passed away, yeah, I found out the same time my dad did. I was 8. When my other grandpa passed away, I found out before everybody, and I'm not allowed to tell anybody anything. So I had to sit there in my grief and in my sadness by myself. So yes, at 9 years old, I was excited for my siblings to find out. So I wasn't the only one who knew. It was messed up to feel that way, but I was 9. And what does a 9-year-old do when they have a secret that big?
I
I
don't know
had to
that's
wait.
valid.
First of all, I was told, I stayed home from school that day because I was sick. And I was told by my mom one-on-one that they were separating. So this was like early in the day. I was sitting on the couch, the same couch I'd be sitting on later to hear the talk again. I was sitting on the couch and my mom comes to me and she's like, I know you've been thinking something, I know you've been hearing some things, blah, 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 whatever. I don't really remember the conversation either because I was a kid. And then I had to wait all day for you guys to find out. Literally till after dinner. It was dark by the time you guys found out.
Like it was like, all right, kids, time for a good night, time for a bedtime story. Mommy and daddy are
They said
splitting
that?
up. Can you imagine?
Like,
What kind of fucked up
I
bedtime
just
story is that?
I don't know. I just and it was different the second time around because you guys were all there and dad was there. He was not there for my first talk. But I was like, I kept asking mom, I'm like, are we gonna tell them? Are we gonna tell them? When do we tell them? Are we gonna tell them? Like we were going to Disney World or something. Like it was exciting. Like you guys were gonna be happy about this news. Like
I mean, I totally get like where you're coming from though, because like you said, you were only like 9. Like I wouldn't want to keep a secret that big from everybody either. And I feel like since you were little Miss Nancy Drew, like you always somehow knew everything. Even when it was vacations, you knew before before mom had even booked the trip. You're like, yeah, this is where we're going. This is what we're doing it. This is what we're doing. This is the itinerary, and this is exactly where we're gonna park the car. Like you knew everything.
Okay. Listen, I just have always been mature for my age, and I feel like they feel I can handle certain things.
But
like,
you were 9.
People passing away and
you were 9.
And parents getting divorced. You know, and then I have to sit with this information with no one to talk to about it. And then by the time everybody else finds out, they're like hitting that initial sadness, like they're going through it all now, and I'm like, I've already processed it. Like,
right. And what
talk.
was so weird is that like I remember I was the only one who cried, and I remember dad saying to me like a few years later, like when I was like 16, he was like, watching you cry broke my heart because like I was the oldest. I think I was like 13 when it happened. And I mean, I don't know. And that just sticks with me a lot. And it just like, I feel like all of us had such a diverse reaction. And I'd love to get Nico and JoJo on here one day to talk about like how they processed it. But I feel like the way that our parents did it was really good. Like they were really gentle with us. They answered any and all questions we had. So they made sure to constantly reassure us that like, they still loved each other. They still loved us. And I know, like, I can't remember who was asking her, like, is dad going to get another house? Are we going to have 2 Christmases? Like, it was just, like, innocent child questions. And I just remember being there silent. And I mean, I went to school the next day and I told everybody because I had it on my chest and I wanted to get it out, and I felt like no matter how many times I told people, I still wasn't able to process it. Like, what did you do like the next day? Like when you went to school, like did you tell anybody?
I don't remember like the immediate like aftermath of like finding out. Like, I feel like the most I remember is like dad getting his first apartment, us going over there for the first
Right.
time. I remember when they were talking to us how they told us they would love us forever and like they're gonna stay friends and blah blah blah, and it's not gonna be messy and it's not gonna be like that. But I genuinely don't remember like telling people about it or like how I went about that. But I do remember there was one year, I think it was like 2 years after or a year after they had officially got divorced, and there was somebody in my grade whose parents were getting separated. And I don't know if there weren't a lot of divorced parents in my grade, but like she came to me asking for like advice and like what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember that, but I don't really remember like what happened the months kind of after that. Like I don't remember the next day. Like, was it weird? What happened? What was said? What was the vibe in the house? Like, I mean, I was only 9, so
Yeah. And yeah, and it also helped that they made the transition so smooth that it really didn't impact us in that matter. Like I feel like they were really patient with us and they didn't like push us to do anything we didn't want to do. Like we had time to process, and that's like a luxury a lot of kids with divorced parents don't get. What are you smiling at?
mom is here. What?
Hi, mom.
Okay, Gianna says hi. Can
um
she's like,
she's like, what are you talking about? You, mother dearest. Well, not you, but you.
I to be honest, I didn't hear anything you just said, so I hope you remember where you were.
I do. Um Yeah, I didn't really know a lot of people with divorced parents, but I do now. I feel like I know more people with divorced parents than I know parents who are still together. And the parents that are still together, I feel like 75% of them are parents that should have split up. So
Well,
I'm
that's
just.
because the statistic is 51% of couples gets divorced. 51%. I might be more, might be less now,
No,
but
I remember reading that too. And I just think that's really interesting. And that kind of is a good segue into our next topic, which is kind of like how our parents' divorce has kind of played into our relationships with like our parents and our friends and like romantic interests and stuff. So, did you notice that it had any sort of impact on your like attachment style or like anything?
um I mean, I don't think it really affected my relationship with our parents. I think, well, I'm lying. It did. I, at a certain age, because of this divorce and like both of our parents going through their own stuff, like kind of realized our parents are just people. And yes, there are parents, but they also are just people in this world trying to do their best and live their lives and whatever. So that was a big realization for me. I mean, that helped me like cope with a lot of things and like realize, hey, maybe this is why they're doing what they're doing, and maybe this is why this reaction was like this. Like, just kind of saw them as people instead of parents. I mean, it's not always easy because they're your parents and you love them and you like it's hard to see them as anything but that definitely changed my perspective on a lot of things. I don't think it really affected my relationship with friends. I feel like I've always been like, I mean, honestly, like I've always been pretty secure in like who I am and like how I handle friendships. But relationships are a funny word, you know? Like,
Very,
I don't know.
very funny.
I don't have attachment issues. I would say because I like if people are negatively affecting my life, like I can cut them out and I can move on and change and grow. But I definitely do have trust issues, like letting people in. I don't necessarily know if that it's like not a direct result of our parents getting divorced, but I mean there was a time in my life where I was being told that that would never happen. They were not getting divorced. Blah blah blah. You know all the good lies. And then they did. So I think it's hard because when you watch your parents, who are two people who loved you enough to get, well, loved each other enough to get married and start a family, get separated, you're kind of like, how did they get to this point? Like, how did we get here? And you're scared because you don't want that to ever happen. Like, I know,
Yeah.
like, I don't ever want to get divorced. It's not something, anybody plans for. It's not something people want, but now I'm scared of it. I'm like, if I ever have a family, like, I don't want to get divorced and put my kids through that. Not that this is necessarily how it would work in the future if, say, any of us did get divorced, but our parents showed us that there is a way to go about it, that you do put the kids first, that they know you love them, and that you're trying your best. I mean, like I said, it wasn't perfect. There were fights, there were arguments, there were tears. Like, the divorce is never going to be easy, but they definitely tried their very best to be there for us and do it for us. So now I think I have a better understanding of, like, if something were to happen later on down the line, like, how I would want to handle it, you know?
No, absolutely. And I think that piggybacks on the points we were making earlier where our parents did everything to make sure that we had the smoothest transition possible. I mean, even when dad started seeing somebody new, it was a slow introduction, and mom was a part of the entire process. And something I love so deeply about our stepmom is that she cares so deeply about our mom and she respects the hell out of our mom, which I think has just made everything just so much easier. But I completely understand where you're coming from in regards to like trust issues, because I've noticed in any like romantic pursuits I have had, I shut things down the second the interest seems genuine. And I mean, I'm not saying that I've had a lot of people really like get close enough to the point where it would become an actual like opportunity, but um I am skeptical in getting married. And I mean, it's also different for you because you want to have kids. And I have no interest in having kids. Like, if I could take my uterus out, I would. And I think that also impacts the way that you look at your attachments to other people, because when you start dating somebody, you're going to be like, is this somebody that I want to marry, settle down, start a family with? And when I start talking to people, I'm like, is this somebody that I'm going to be comfortable being alone with the rest of my life? Will they want to travel with me? Will they accept the parts of me that I can't hide by being a good mom, or things like that? Not hide by being a good mom, but have the good mom trait to replace my negative parts. I don't know what I'm getting at, but hopefully that makes sense to somebody who is in the same boat that I am. But I have noticed that with my parents, it has affected my relationships in different ways. I feel like when I was a kid, I was close to both my parents. Obviously, I was an angsty little preteen, and I had a lot of mental health issues going on. But when I dropped out of school, fun fact, I dropped out of high school my freshman year. I ended up going to a different school, but if you didn't know that, now you know. I remember like that's when I noticed my relationships had started to fray with both my parents, because this is maybe a year after they had split up. And so when I dropped out of school, I was staying with more with mom, and because that's where my teachers would go. And so I stayed more with mom because I'd have to be there for school. And I know dad was a little reluctant to pull me out of school, and I don't blame him because that's scary. And they had never had to homeschool a kid before, let alone one that was as dramatically depressed as I was. Not as dramatically, not that my depression was dramatic, but it was a lot. And so I noticed that it put a little bit of a strain on my relationship with dad. But like as I've grown older and I went to college, like the college process is what brought me and my dad back together. And I just remember like now as an adult, what you said really stuck with me the first time we talked about this, like seeing our parents as people, because they are, at the end of the day, they are people. And as much as I look back on photos of them when they were together, and I'm like, wow, like I really, really miss when they were married, like I look at pictures of them when they were together and I get all emotional. Like I try to avoid going that deep in their Facebook pages because still like that 13-year-old in me is still like devastated. But getting older and rekindling my relationships with them apart has really helped me come to have a deeper respect for what they did, because acknowledging that their relationship wasn't in a healthy spot and doing that scary thing of having to tell your kids and knowing you were going to change their lives and your own, I admire and respect them a lot more for doing it when they did, as opposed to waiting any longer and putting it off and potentially harming my relationships with them forever. And so when I'm looking at romantic partners, I'm like, are you somebody that I would be able to separate from and still respect? Like, it just makes it really difficult for me to want to see the good, the bad, and the ugly in another person, because I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly with my own parents, and I don't know if I would have the strength to do it as well as they did. Does that make any sense at all?
No, it makes sense. I mean, I think that in an ideal world for any kid, your parents would still be together. They would still love each other. We would still be in a nuclear family household. But honestly, our lives changed a lot for the better
Yeah,
when our parents
absolutely.
got separated. You know, like my mom is living in a place she's always wanted to live. My dad met an amazing woman, and now we have a bonus brother. Like, he's not my dad's, by the way.
Shout out Cole. Shout out Cole.
But like you're always gonna want your parents to be together. Like, that's not ever gonna go away. And if you ever look at a picture of them one day and be like, yeah, I'm happy they're divorced, like, this doesn't happen. Like, nobody does that. Like,
can you imagine
yes,
if somebody did though?
Okay, but sometimes, like, because first of all, you don't take pictures of the bad moments, you take pictures of the good moments. So every time we're looking at a picture of our parents together, it was a good moment,
right?
Based on what we're seeing.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
So like, if we saw a picture of them talking in the garage or like fighting or like I don't know, figuring out money, like
some
maybe
cryptic
we'd be like,
ass like Blair Witch Trials hidden footage, like VHS
right, like
tape.
maybe we'd be like, all right, I get it, I respect it, like. And like that's so it's hard. Like, you're gonna look at childhood photos and you're gonna miss those moments and you're gonna mourn them. But honestly, we get lucky and like those moments haven't fully stopped. Like, our parents come to everything. We take pictures together. Like,
absolutely,
my 18th birthday, we spent it in my dad's house and my mom was there. Like,
we
my
all went
brother's birthday last summer. Like, it is, everything's a family
It's
affair.
so
like,
cool to just be able to have divorced parents, one who is remarried, and have them all be able to hang out. Like, our bonus brother Cole loves our mom, loves her
so much.
like, genuinely loves her. And it's just, I just feel like we got so spoiled in that aspect that sometimes I feel bad for having trust issues with other people, because I'm like, well, my parents did it right. Why am I still scared?
I think that because like, as much as it turned out good, there was still bad. Like,
that is true.
So with the bad comes the good, with the good comes the bad. Like, it's never ever going to be a like easy scenario no matter what, because those were two people who loved each other, started a family, and now they have to figure out how to do life without each other and how they're going to do that stuff. I mean, our parents never went to court. They did mediation. Oh my god. Oh my god.
You just hit puberty at 20 years old.
Okay. With the good comes the bad, and with the bad comes the good. Because our parents were still two people who loved each other and started a family together, and now have to figure out how to do life without each other and how they're going to separate everything and figure all that out. So yeah, there was ugly. I mean, there's always going to be ugly, like, in a divorce, but our parents did their absolute best to make sure that that the good outweighed the bad, necessarily.
This podcast is brought to you by my mom's dog, Kaya, barking really aggressively in the background of this episode. So yeah, if you have a dog, your dog is also a sponsor of this podcast. But no, like saying all of that and everything we've talked about, like, would you have changed like anything knowing what we know now? Like, it's been 10 years. We're in our 20s now as opposed to being kids. Like, would you personally, like, talking about like all divorced kids wish their parents were still together? Would you have changed anything?
The trauma made me funny, and the divorce brought me Nicole and Cole. So I don't know if I would necessarily change anything. I mean, I can't imagine a divorce that would be like all sunshine and rainbows and like no
Right.
hardships in life. Like I feel like a lot of the stuff, well, I personally like went through as a child and like still am going through, like shape who I am and like definitely gave me character. Like got a lot to say, but I don't know. I don't know if I were to change anything. I definitely wouldn't. The child in me wants to say, "Ah, yes, I would have our parents stay together." But like realistically, that probably wouldn't have benefited me as much as I think it would.
I feel like the trauma would have been
So
way worse.
yeah, like we've been through some shit, but we would have been through some shit. But yeah, I don't think I would change anything. Maybe like a little less fighting, like less than less already, because like it wasn't a lot, but like you know, that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
What would you change?
I personally wouldn't change anything, and that is hard to say when the little girl in me is like banging on my chest and being like, "No, we would change it. We would keep them together." But like I wouldn't. Solely because I know that my relationships with my parents would have suffered. I would have moved to college, and I moved at 18 and I never really came home. Like I would come home for holidays and stuff,
Hurricanes.
but in hurricanes. But when I went to college, like I left. Bird flew out of the nest, didn't come back. And now
Bird
it's
dropped out of
been
the nest.
Bird just face planted into the grass under the branch the nest was in, and then walked instead of flew for a couple years, but is now learning that she has wings. But I feel like if our parents had stayed together and their relationship just continued to get worse and worse, I feel like when I moved out at 18, I I would have kind of distanced myself more from my parents, but I feel like 5 years of living out of the house now, I'm about to move halfway across the country, and I feel so secure in both my relationships with my parents because them being separated allowed them to grow as people, which allowed me as I grew to grow with them. Instead of like growing away from them, I grow alongside them. And I feel like my relationship with my dad, with my mom, with my stepmom, like all of my relationships with my parental figures are really, really strong. So even given everything I've gone through the last year and the times I've needed help, I have felt more secure in going to them for advice, assistance, whatever it was. And I would not have had that trust in them if they didn't separate, because them separating proved to me that they did what was best for me before I even knew it was what before hello before I
Before you
knew.
knew it was good for
Yes,
you.
thank you. So I personally, like, I'm gonna tell that little girl in me that like she's valid in her feelings, but I stand by that. I wouldn't change anything.
You looking at little G going, valid. Very valid. But no.
Your emotions are valid, but let's be realistic here,
But
bitch. Let's be fucking realistic.
listen, without divorce, we would never have therapy. We would never have trauma. We would never have Cole. We would never have Nicole. We would never have all the good times. We never have all the bad times. Like it changed our life for sure. It changed our life in many different ways. Like there's no other way to put it, but like it changed your life. The path that we were on changed, and it separated into mom path, dad path, and then the path comes back together and we're all together. But luckily for us, the good outweighs the bad in this situation. Our parents can communicate. Our parents can call each other if they needed to. Like, we can spend holidays together. We could celebrate big moments in life together. We could just go out and have fun together. Like, it doesn't always have to be like a thing like, oh, it's a graduation. Let's, like, we could all just go out and do stuff
Right. There
together. Like,
doesn't need to be two separate birthday dinners, two separate
no,
celebration dinners.
there are sometimes, but that's just because sometimes
The schedule
this
doesn't
is
line
what we're doing
up.
at this. Yeah, this is what
Right.
we're doing here. This is what we're doing here. It's not like, oh, well, we can't celebrate together. Like, no, it's if I last for my 18th birthday, all I wanted was my parents together and for us to all to celebrate together. My mom came over, she brought the balloons, my dad got the cake. Like,
I mean, when we
it was
both went
fun.
to college, both parents came and helped us move in. Dad drove
Yeah,
mom's truck when you were moving into college.
Like, we fight like a family and we love like a family. Like, it's not perfect, but it's our version of perfect, I guess, because it's what we know. It's what we're good at now, like figure out the flow. But I don't know. I'm grateful
Me too.
for the years they had together, but I'm also grateful for the years that we have had now. So if I had to tell younger me or somebody else or like anybody who asked, like, or anybody who's going, parents were going through divorce, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be my situation. And just like my situation's not going to be your situation, yours might be even better than mine. Yours might be a complete cluster F. Like, I don't know, but remember that there are other people who've gone through similar things, and it might your parents are people too. They're not perfect. They're going to be angry. They're going to be hurt. They're going to say things they don't mean, just like you do. And sometimes you have to take a step back and look at them and be like, hey, this person is hurt, not this parent is hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I for sure have said things I don't mean. I've felt my emotions very strongly and reacted that poorly because of it. But my parents love me despite it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I should give them the same benefit. So just remember, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be perfect, but there are people out there who know what you're going through, and I'm sure there's somebody in your life you could turn to if this happens to you.
Absolutely. And
Mic
I
drop.
just got like little chills because you worded that so well. And like, not to get all like emo, but like as a big sister, like I just love seeing you come so much into your own. Like, it's just, I'm very proud of you and I admire your perspectives on life. And I want to offer the same affirmation to anybody whose parents have been divorced, whose parents are getting divorced, whose parents should have been divorced but aren't. Like, anybody with parental struggles, like, you are absolutely not alone in anything that you're going through. Like Bella said, there's a huge percentage, especially in the United States, of parents that separate. And I definitely, I'm always going to push for people to find someone to talk to, but therapy is fantastic if it's accessible to you. And just reading forums, like getting into groups, like talking about what you're going through can help you feel a lot more seen, because divorce is far more common than I feel like any of us would like to admit. And like Bella said, at the end of the day, they're human beings, but it's hard when you're younger and a daughter or son or whatever to look at your parent as a person sometimes. So we definitely got spoiled in the way that our divorce went, because there are definitely divorces that don't happen the way that ours did. Like, there are some that are genuinely really, really traumatic. And for that, I truly advise seeking out professional help and allowing your voice and your experience to be heard so that it can be something that you grow and learn from and not something that holds you back. But yeah, I mean, Bella, I really appreciate you being so expressive and sharing your takes on everything. It truly is like, it makes me very happy just to hear how to articulate. See, this is where I want to put
See,
my head
that's
through a
like
wall.
funny that you say I'm articulate because I feel like I can't speak.
But you've
I think
really grown a lot as I'm cutting you off. You've really grown as a
it's okay.
person, and you have such a mature and well-rounded view on life. And I mean, even as like a big sister, like I look up to you a lot. So
I think that like something we could definitely go into in a different episode is there are a lot of things that have happened that we are not sharing today. And that is out of respect for other people. These are our stories, but they're also other people's stories, so we're trying to just share like our perspectives and how we felt and not put words in anybody else's mouth or talk for them. So yes, you heard a lot about how grateful we are that things ended up the way they ended up and how it wasn't a completely miserable time in our childhood because of this, but there was a lot of stuff that we went through.
Oh, there was a lot of trauma. I have attended a lot of therapy, and I have a lot of long-term impacts.
Right. Like, we're not going to air out other people's dirty laundry.
No.
So
we'll get them on here and be like, Mommy, Daddy,
yeah,
why don't you love each other anymore? Like, we get them on here. We like bait them.
But we do like to talk about how we feel. There will definitely be an episode about mental health.
Lots of them.
Got a lot to say.
Lots of them.
But I just want you to remember, like, we are choosing to share what we want to share and what we feel is appropriate to share. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, well, that doesn't sound too bad. Yes, it was on the lesser side of traumatic, but
the trauma is still there.
Yeah, we have our own fair share of trauma, and you should never compare situations
ever.
That is how I got my fear of divorces. I watched one divorce and I was like, this is how it is.
Yeah,
this
like we're not sitting here being like, divorce is great. Like, don't worry about it. Like, you're gonna be amazing.
Yeah, it's gonna be so good.
It's gonna be such a life altering experience. Like, no, we're not saying that. We went through some shit, and so did our parents. But it's not our place to talk about our siblings' experiences or our parents' experiences. That's what them coming on here and telling you that is for. So take everything that we say with a grain of salt. And like Bella said, don't compare your situation to ours. Yeah. But anyways, Bella, is there any other final notes you want to share with our listeners? You don't have to say anything.
Divorce sucks. That's it.
Yeah, it does suck. And yet again, you're not alone if you're going through it, and there are resources available to you in all different forms of ways if you need it. But yeah, we just want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to our first official episode. If you have any comments, suggestions, you can always message us on any of our social platforms. All of our handles are at Products of Pod. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. You can find us on all social platforms. Thank you so much for all the attention that our trailer episode got. We appreciate all the unwavering support we've already been shown in response to this episode. And Bella and I, I'm going to speak for Bella because I know it's true, are really, really excited to see where this goes and to see how everybody receives it. So yeah, hope everybody has a really great day. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.